Responsibility is the moment power returns by Jason Gray. January 8th, 2026, 6026, Anno Lucis. Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Most people believe responsibility is a burden. They hear the word and feel pressure, obligation, blame, confinement. To them, responsibility sounds like something imposed, something that limits freedom and increases weight. This belief is not accidental. It keeps people dependent. Responsibility is not what traps you. Responsibility is what ends your captivity. As long as your life is explained primarily through causes outside yourself, people, systems, history, trauma, timing, your life may be understandable, but it is not yours. It may be justified, but it is not directed. Power does not live where explanation lives. Power lives where authorship is claimed. The fracture begins when responsibility is confused with fault. Fault asks, who caused this? Responsibility asks, where does agency sit now? These are not the same question. You can be completely blameless and still powerless. You can be wronged and still immobilized. You can be correct and still irrelevant to your own future. Fault looks backward. Responsibility stands in the present. This is why people cling to explanations. Explanations soothe. They organize pain. They make suffering feel intelligent. Explanations do not move life forward. They only make the past more detailed. Responsibility ends the analysis loop. Responsibility is the moment you stop asking why this happened and start asking what is mine to do now. Not emotionally, not philosophically, practically. This is where power returns, not as control over circumstances, but as control over response. People resist responsibility because it collapses fantasy. Fantasy says, if they would change, I could begin. If circumstances improved, I could act. If I healed more, learned more, prepared more, I would move. Responsibility says, begin where you are. This feels cruel to the part of you that wants fairness first. It feels threatening to the part of you that wants permission. Fairness is not the gatekeeper of reality. Action is. Responsibility is not an admission of guilt. It is a declaration of authorship. When you take responsibility, something immediate and physical happens. The mind stops scattering. The nervous system stops searching for escape routes. Energy that was leaking into resentment, comparison, justification, and delay collapses inward and becomes usable. Clarity appears not because the situation improved, but because you are no longer divided against it. This is why responsibility feels heavy at first. It removes excuses. It removes the hope that someone else will rescue you. It removes the fantasy that life will become manageable before you enter it. What it gives back is leverage. A responsible person stops negotiating endlessly with reality. They stop waiting for conditions to align. They stop asking for consensus before moving. They do not require certainty to act. They choose a direction and step. This does not make them reckless. It makes them engaged. Engagement is what teaches. A person who avoids responsibility stays theoretical. They live in models, intentions, and future plans. A person who takes responsibility enters consequence, and consequence educates quickly. This is how competence is built. This is how confidence becomes grounded. This is how identity stabilizes without becoming rigid. Responsibility is the pivot point between victimhood and adulthood. Victimhood does not require lying, it only requires waiting. Waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for fairness, waiting for apology, waiting for the world to behave correctly. Victimhood offers moral positioning without demand. It gives explanation, sympathy, and coherence, but no movement. Responsibility offers no sympathy. It offers traction. A responsible person stops asking who should have done better and starts doing better with what is available. They do not deny harm. They simply refuse to remain subordinate to it. Responsibility says, regardless of how this came to be, the next move belongs to me. That sentence alone changes the structure of a life. When responsibility is taken, paralysis ends. Not because fear disappears, but because fear is no longer allowed to veto action. You act with fear instead of waiting to act without it. This is what strength actually looks like. Not dominance, not control over others, but the ability to stand inside uncertainty without outsourcing direction. A responsible person does not dramatize outcomes. They do not inflate obstacles to justify delay. They do not confuse unfairness with impossibility. They understand something essential. Reality does not reward explanations. Reality responds to movement. This is why responsible people often appear lucky. They are not. They simply remain in motion long enough for adjustment to occur. Responsibility does not mean doing everything alone. It means refusing to pretend you are helpless. It means acknowledging limits without surrendering agency. It means working with what is available instead of resenting what is not. Responsibility is not heaviness for its own sake. It is weight that grounds. When you stop resisting responsibility, you stop resisting your own power. You no longer wait to feel ready. You become ready by acting, correcting, refining, and continuing. This is where freedom actually begins. Freedom is not the absence of responsibility. Freedom is the capacity to carry responsibility without resentment. A free person is not someone with no obligations. A free person is someone whose actions belong to them. When responsibility is claimed, life stops arguing with you. The internal noise quiets. The endless negotiation ends. You stop asking permission from the future. You stand where you are and say, "This is within my reach," even if it is uncomfortable, even if it is imperfect, even if it requires work you did not ask for. The moment responsibility is taken, power returns. Not later, not after confidence, not after certainty. Now. The moment you take responsibility, your life stops negotiating with you and starts responding. Jason Gray. I feel that a lot of people in our society are stuck in a cycle of blaming others for things that they see wrong with our world. And it really does create a situation of powerlessness. Taking responsibility is so important, and it's something that I feel lucky that my parents taught me. And I think, it wasn't always easy or fun, and sometimes I think I hated them for it. But it's so important, and I think it's something that parents of more recent generations have sort of stopped embracing, making sure that their children feel responsible and have agency within themselves. I think a lot of parents avoid consequences for their children without realizing how very damaging that is. And we really need to have strong children. We need to be raising responsible, strong people who are prepared to take on the difficulties that we're facing and that we're going to be facing in this world. And I think an important part of parents embracing responsibility is allowing their children to feel healthy fear and to realize that they don't have to be paralyzed by fear, because so many kids are, and adults as well, are afraid of things that they don't necessarily need to be afraid of things that aren't actually going to hurt them. And so I know it can be challenging as a parent to allow your child to be fearful, but it's something that we need to not avoid, because that is what teaches strength, is being afraid to do something, potentially afraid to act or afraid of what might happen, but knowing it's the right thing to do and doing it anyways, not waiting for fear to disappear, but acting with fear. And I wanted to read this today because it feels very personally relevant to me. And I hope that it feels relevant to you as well. Thanks for being here.